If you're looking for more horror outside of the mainstream, look no further than Unsung Horrors, a podcast about underseen horror movies. I'm Lance.
And I'm Erica. Every other week, we'll cover a horror movie with fewer than 1,000 views on Letterboxd. We'll even give you double feature recommendations to pair with the movies we discuss.
From gothic to shot on video, from slashers to comedies, from giallo to J-horror, we'll cover all the subgenres. So join us as we unearth these hidden gems of horror.
Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, all at Unsung Horrors, available wherever you listen to podcasts. And part of the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
Hello, filthy movie lovers. My name is Gentry Austin.
And I'm Casey Scott.
And we're the hosts of the Sin Syndicate, film podcast for something weirdos, anti-criterion bros, and Joseph Sarno aficionados. Join us semi-weekly as we peer into the adults-only theaters and sticky-floored cinemas of the golden age of sexploitation, when the morals were loose, the laws were murky, and the intercourse was all simulated. Find us now on the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
Weirding Way Media.
Night, Mr. Walters.
You see that guy over there? No, he's an actor. The guy on the phone, he's a prize fighter. Me, I'm a cab driver. I'm the only cab driver in this place.
Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to Night, Mr. Walters, a taxi podcast. I am HP. With me, as always, is my co-host, Father Malone. Father Malone, say hi.
Hey, the Bee Gees are singing the national anthem. You get excited.
That's right. We'll talk about that and more in this episode. The episode we'll be covering is episode 2. It's called One Punch Banta. It's written by Earl Pomerantz and directed by the one and only James Burrows. This is the first of what I like to call, in taxi terms, the brass ring stories. This is a story that focuses on one cabbie's vain attempt to get out of the garage, only to come sadly short. In this particular episode, just to kind of summarize it quickly, Tony gets a call from the gym that the champ, Carlos Navarone, needs a sparring partner in advance of his big fight. And this is sort of shades of Rocky.
He's got a record. I looked up his record.
As Tony says, you can actually look up his record. So it's a big deal to Tony and all the other cabbies. In a show of support, they buy him a robe and they come down to the sparring session. Everybody's very excited about this. And during the sparring session, Tony, he throws a left to the champ's body and the champ goes down. Unbelievably to everyone, including Tony, to their surprise, he goes down. And this opens up even more doors for Tony because once the word gets out, he actually gets offered a fight with a major contender. The fighter's name is Frankie Wallace. He's the 8th in the world. And this is
Frankie Wallace.
Frankie Wallace. Indeed.
What?
So this is a big deal. So he's going to have a fight. I think that he's actually fighting at Madison Square Garden. And this could be the launching point for his real boxing career. So he goes, the night of the fight comes up. He's training. Alex is actually managing him and he's training. And Carlos, the champ, comes in with his manager. We'll talk about him in a moment, but they come in and basically they rain on Tony's parade. They let the cat out of the bag and basically say to him that Carlos's fight wasn't selling very well. So they needed something to drum up interest in the fight. They concocted this scheme to take a dive during the sparring session so that he would sell more tickets. He wouldn't be as the champ wouldn't seem as unbeatable. Tony, of course, says, "You're wrong. I hit you with a good left hook or whatever." So he takes a pot shot at the champ. The champ doesn't budge. So clearly this is all a setup and Tony really didn't earn his shot.
Tony's been had.
And he's hurt. Words are exchanged between him and the champ and things get heated and the champ ends up punching him in the face. and he goes down and
For
he's
realty.
dazed. He's actually helped up by another fighter, and he confides in the fighter. He says, I think if I dance around for the first couple rounds, I'll be okay. By the way, what's your name? And the other fighter says, your opponent. So Tony's not going to win the fight. In a related story,
And that
Louie
opponent was George Plimpton.
That's right.
Researching a new book. Luck is in favor for Tony Banta that day, and he got out of the garage, and he was never heard from again. It's one of the winning episodes of Taxi. They were few and far between, but oh man, the promise of the Tony Banta character.
I love the George Plimpton reference. In a related story, Louie has goaded Alex into betting on the fight. And so not only does Tony lose and lose poorly or lose badly, but Alex has to pay up, and it's a humiliation for everybody. But again, Tony's never going to stop fighting, reaching for the brass ring, and scene. So that's the episode in a nutshell. So now let's dig into some of the finer points of this episode. First of all, there's a little more. There's a B story that never really goes anywhere that I haven't really mentioned, where at the beginning, Louie kind of confides to Alex that John, our favorite.
John the Rube.
John the Rube, who, again, we won't see him past this season. He's not making his bookings, and he's going to have to fire John. And Alex says, no, don't do it. And it never goes anywhere from there. That's all you hear of it. You'd think that there'd be some sort of a resolution to that, but there's really not.
Here's my first note I wrote for the episode. Already Louie is saying what the audience is thinking. Get rid of John the Rube. When we talked in the pilot about Mr. Carver here. Is that his name, yeah?
Randall Carver.
Randall Carver. I think we were very kind to him. And now in episode 2, it's no longer time to be kind to Randall Carver. That character is bad. And he's bad in it. It's all, oh gosh, oh golly, oh gee. It's like Jim Neighbors has stumbled into the garage.
Well, I think you had said it, that he really is designed to be the audience proxy, but we don't need an audience proxy with characters as colorful and interesting as Alex, as Elaine, as Louie, as Bobby. John couldn't help but be the odd man out. And I think it's telling, well, maybe not telling, but I think it's interesting that you have a character like Latka who seems from the get-go to be a purely ancillary character, somebody that Andy Kaufman can kind of come in, do a little bit of shtick, make the audience laugh, and it goes no further than that. But it's interesting that one of the main characters, John, is, even as of episode 2, seems to be getting phased out in a way. And Latka, even though there's really not much for him to do, he is so compelling. And it's really the interplay, because he and Louie have a little bit of banter back and forth. And it's just sort of the comedy is really, really good. And it's so clear that that's where the writers are choosing to focus, because it's more interesting. It's funnier. And it's fresher and it's more interesting. And clearly Andy Kaufman is a star on the rise. How could you not want to focus on him? And even from episode 1, Louie, or I should say Danny DeVito, is Louie De Palma. And, he's as good in episode 1, 2, 3 as he is in those final episodes. It's so it's so obvious to everybody. And sadly for Randall Carver, things don't really, there are episodes, I shouldn't say that. There are episodes that we will get into that actually focus on John and his sort of foibles and his misadventures. But I got to say, those are not the highlights of this season, or any season for that matter. But yeah, he's not good at all. Not good.
You said that we don't need an audience proxy, and I don't think we ever do, but you can do it well. You just can't make it this character. Like, how about somebody who is at least a little bit slick, instead of like bargain basement Woody Harrelson? I know this is the presage. We've talked about this. This is eventually will pay off as the Woody character on Cheers, but that's done right. Because he's not the audience proxy. He's just another idiot amongst idiots. And this character has nothing to bring to the table. He's not funny. It's just, like I said, he's like wandered in from another series, it seems.
He does, and it seems a little bit like you said, like a Jim Neighbors, like a throwback to an earlier type of sitcom archetype. And the thing of it is, when you think about all of the different actors and the roles they play, they've pretty much got the spectrum covered. The Tony is a good rube. He's the punch drunk, lovable boxer. You have Bobby, who is the slick New Yorker would-be actor, who is great with the ladies and maybe a little too full of himself, but a good guy. You've got Elaine, who's, beautiful, but single mother, has real ambition and motivation to better herself. You've got Louie, who's just the worst in terms of being a scummy individual. And you've got Alex, who kind of ties it all together, who's the voice of reason and the cabbie that everybody looks up to, and really the sort of father figure
and the proxy for the audience. And that's what Rieger is,
because he's the one who will, he's comfortable looking around and saying, isn't this ridiculous? Like, what's going on? I don't think you need to have the rube there, the person who kind of look around and go, oh, isn't this crazy? This is New York. Oh, we don't need that.
No, and you're right. If you're going to have a rube, you're having him there because he's an idiot. But everyone in this cab company is basically an idiot. We've just got a couple of ones that we can hang on to sort of as intelligent characters. And, Bobby is kind of a dummy, and Tony is definitely a dummy, and so's Latka, and so's Jim, and so's Louie. Like, they're all idiots. We don't need the guy from Alabama or wherever the goddamn fuck John is from. Send him back there immediately. I'm with Louie. I was with Louie a few times in this episode, as a matter of fact. And I'm with you in that that's a B plot that goes nowhere at all. Like, there's this sort of looming threat of John being fired, and now they have to teach him the ways of taxi driving, and then it never comes back at all. There's also a C plot going on, is there not, of Latka versus Louie about the car repair, doesn't have enough to do around the thing, and then there's a D plot where it's Louie versus everybody. All the plots hang around Louie. Louie is the proxy for the audience.
Right. And you're right. There was that sort of he's getting on Latka's case because he believes that he doesn't have enough to do around the garage. But that to me is just an excuse to have Louie and Latka kind of get into it. And even though Kaufman's portrayal isn't quite where it ended up, he's a little more sort of bound to his original foreign guy nightclub act, because at one point, I think he's going through a dictionary trying to find the right English phrase or word to say. But if the writers don't have faith in the John character to actually write a complete arc for the B story in this show, then why could an audience member be called upon to care about him? I mean, it really feels like they're in the writer's room and they go well, how do we resolve this thing with him and not making bookings? Who cares? Let's just continue with Tony's story. Who cares?
Or maybe they filmed it maybe there was one more scene and then they were like, oh, we got to cut it for time. Well, we're not gonna keep the Randall Carver stuff in, right? No.
So, yeah, that didn't work at all. That went over like the proverbial lead balloon. Let's just skip. That's probably, I mean, I in my research, I mean, I never came across anything like that, but I would not be a bit surprised, because it does seem, thinking about it now, it does seem a little odd that they set up this conflict with John and the threat to lose his job, and then and nothing ever really becomes of it. It's really forgotten for the rest of the episode.
No, and they involve other characters. They bring it over to Judd Hirsch, and then Marilu Henner gets involved, and we got to save John's job, and then no, there's a boxing match. Let's just go to the fights for the rest of the episode, everybody.
Yeah, because it's far more interesting and far, it's a lot funnier. It's actually kind of incredible that they choose to focus episode 2. And just as a reminder, we're going over these shows in broadcast order and not in order of the filming. So for all intents and purposes, this is episode 2. I think it takes a great deal of faith on the writer's part and everybody involved to focus an episode so early on the actor who ostensibly has the least amount of experience of anyone, including Randall Carver, because Tony Danza was the classic. I mean, he was a boxer who went into acting later in life, but you know what? He's really good in this. You know,
He's like 25, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's he's not, but he's not a seasoned actor.
Later in life,
sure. But my point is, he's somebody who had a career such as it was as a boxer, and was sort of discovered later in his life and made into an actor. But he's really
it's like
good.
The human Bolt Jenkins, from Animal Olympics. That's what Tony Danza is. They just plucked him out of the sewer,
out of obscurity, and there he is.
Here's the thing: whoever made the decision to put this episode before the Angela episode, featuring Tony Danza, a complete novice to the entire field of acting and comedic acting, they deserve a medal, because he's effortlessly charming. He plays a perfect idiot. And he was a good-looking fella.
He's so good. It's impossible to imagine anybody else playing Tony, because he's so effortlessly, he's, like you said, he's a dummy. He plays dummy really well, but he's not somebody you look down on.
He's a Peter Tork dummy, except if Peter Tork could kick the shit out of you.
I remember I had a chuckle. I went to the Empire State Building with the family. And when you get to the end, there's like a wall of celebrities that are kind of taken from the observation deck. And everybody's looking at, there's Tom Cruise, there's this, that. I'm like, there's Tony Danza on top of the Empire State Building. I was very happy about that. So we've talked about Tony Danza. I want to talk a little bit about some of the supporting actors that are featured in this. Let's start with the champ, Carlos Navarone. He was the real life WBC welterweight. His name was Carlos Palomino.
Jesus, Palomino.
It sounds like more of a made up name than Carlos Navarone, but he retired in 79, but he did make a short lived comeback in 97 at the ripe old age of 48. And aside from boxing and this episode of Taxi, he's probably most recognized from an ad campaign for Miller Lite. Do you remember that ad? The less filling tastes great.
Oh, I definitely remember that ad.
We'll play a little bit of it right now.
One of the best things about coming to America was that I got to try American beers, and I tried them all. The one I like best, light beer from Miller. It's got a third less calories than the regular beer. It's less filling, and it really tastes great. That's why I tell my friends from Mexico, when you come to America, drink light beer, but don't drink the water.
Light beer from Miller. Everything you always wanted in a beer, and less.
Synchronized chanting and alcohol. They go hand in hand, don't they, buddy?
They don't make them like they used to. So let's...
I want to be drunk and chanting with others right now.
I know you want to talk about this next featured supporting actor who played the manager, Jerry Martin. The actor who played him was a veteran character actor, Allan Arbus.
Oh, you see in everything. What do I know him from? Please tell me, HP.
He's probably best known as Major Sidney Friedman from the TV version of MASH, the sort of psychiatrist that appears periodically and usually treats Hawkeye. Usually Hawkeye's having some kind of breakdown or another soldier.
Does it turn out that he was never there? He was all in Hawkeye's mind?
It was a Fight Club situation. No.
That's too bad. Follow-up question.
Yes.
Did he have the same permanent on MASH set in the 50s in the Korean War? Did he have the same hair?
He did. He had the Robert Reed Brady Bunch perm.
He committed to that look in all of his characters. He said, I'm the one portraying all the characters with this hairstyle.
I feel like we keep coming back to this idea, but this has come up in some of our other podcasts, Father Malone, this idea of the 70s sensitive, ideal man, your Alan Aldas, your Elliot Goulds.
The man who would have this hairstyle, this perm. Yeah, that guy. I'm slightly obsessed with the perm. I can't look away but I want to.
So he, in a long line of very sensitive men dating back, like I said, to Alan Alda. Who else? Who else do we have that are sensitive? Oh, Richard Benjamin. We
Elliot
just talked
Gould.
about him.
Elliot Gould, man. Richard Benjamin. Oh, he's delicious. He's
the best.
He should be a sex symbol in any decade. Do you know I watched Saturday the 14th again just the other day, and I could watch it because of him, and it's a terrible movie. Anyway, continue.
So yeah, so he's, like I said, he's best known for MASH, but he was working as far back as 61. He worked for over 50 years before he died at age 95 in 2013. He even, and just to bring it full circle to our Alan Alda obsession, he even appeared in the short-lived TV version of The Four Seasons, which has become one of our favorite movies, has it not?
Oh, it's always been.
It's always been.
What a slice of heaven that flick.
How did you put it? It was one in a long line of 70s movies about adults getting their shit together, you know?
Yeah. It's hippies like figuring their shit out, like, oh no, it's baby boomers basically. Like, wait, now I have to be responsible, and how do I cope?
Yeah.
And like, what is this new religion my crazy wife is talking about? And she wants to work. That kind of movie.
Yeah, well, he was in that. So not only, and I think he appeared with Alan Alda, which is the the sensitive man equivalent of crossing the streams from Ghostbusters. So
yeah.
So he's great in this. He's shaking hands with Tony, and he says, "Hey, son, good to meet you. Hey, do you want me to call you Tony?" And he says, "Oh no, you can call me son." He's so warm and just appealing and very fatherly that you never would ever imagine that he would actually set up this awful scheme to deceive Tony and make him believe that he actually knocked the champ down. But in reality, it's this, it's nothing more than a scheme to sell more tickets to the champ's next fight. But Allan Arbus being Allan Arbus, he's fantastic. You never doubt for a minute that he's a nice, sensitive individual.
He's so nice. It makes you think it makes you think they just like forgot to tell Tony, like he's such a lovely man. There's no reason to be mad at him that he's done this.
Right.
Just like, oh, Tony, I'm so sorry. I thought I told you about this. Oh, buddy.
But I want to talk about some of the other things that I found interesting and cool about this show. And one of the things I wanted to highlight, and I wanted to kind of get your perspective on it, is, it's a sitcom. It's filmed on a soundstage, and we already talked in the last episode about how good the garage set looks, and how I think you brought up that there's a big concrete pole in the middle, and it actually looks like it's made of concrete, and like there's a vending machine that they get coffee from, and everything looks very very real. But I feel like in this episode they took things to another level, because at one point the cabbies go to the gym to watch Tony spar, and it starts at the beginning where they're coming through the entrance. And usually when you think about this kind of set would just be a ring and maybe some seats kind of around it. But like, I feel like they blew the budget for this episode on this gym, because it starts and it's this tracking shot that takes you from the entrance all the way down the side. You're seeing boxers hitting the heavy bag. They're skipping rope. They're doing the speed bag. And it just keeps going and going and going. And it just seems like such a big set. Like the ring looks like it's an actual sized ring. Again, we've already lauded the set designers and the decorators in the last episode, but I thought like this was for a TV sitcom, this seemed to be above and beyond. I thought it looked really cool. What did you think?
We've got like a locker room set as well that a lot of the action takes place in, and that also looks lived in and real world, at least real for the world of Taxi.
There's a look that the show kind of has, this sort of scruffy, smudged up kind of dirty look, especially when you have the garage and these environments like the garage and like the gym, where it's supposed to be kind of, scuzzy and maybe not especially clean. But again, like this was this set where there's this huge boxing ring. There's even like bleachers. There's full-on bleachers that people sit at. It's not just like a couple of seats that the cabbies kind of like park themselves at or whatever. It's actually fairly impressive. And we've already talked a little bit about, we don't really see it in this episode, but some of the work they put into the poor man's process when the cabbies are driving. We'll see more of that as the series goes on. But along with that, I know we don't see a lot of some of the supporting cabbies. You see a little bit of obviously Louie, and we'll talk about him in a minute, but I want to talk a little bit about Bobby and about perhaps our favorite cabbie, which is Elaine. Now, Elaine isn't especially featured in this episode as much as she gets to be. The writers are still kind of writing her as a sex pot because she has a few one-liners that have to do with are you guys talking about sex?
She'll teach everyone about sex. That's what the writers are coming along with for Nardo in this episode. She's letting you know. She's real good at it.
No, I mean, at one point there's a little bit of banter where they're watching Tony box or spar. Bobby says, you know, I when I'm acting against somebody who's a pro, I get better. And Alex says, yeah, you know, when I play tennis against a pro, I get better. And Nardo says something like, yeah, it's like sex. And one of them turns to her and says, what, do you get better? And she says, no, they get better. Which, again, I've got no problem. I mean, she's beautiful.
She can say whatever she wants. She doesn't need your prudish attitude, HP.
I'm not being prudish. I think it does her a disservice to be portrayed as just kind of a one-note thing where, you know, she eventually...
I think you're a prude. And I think you should let Nardo be Nardo. She can be a charming, sensitive art gallery, not owner, but manager. And she can also teach everyone a thing or two in the sack.
Oh, sure. No, look, I've got nothing against her. I think she's great.
Let me tell you where the writers have actually gone wrong with the characters in this episode. It's with Bobby Wheeler. Because when they come to the gym to witness Bobby's, unbeknownst to him, fake fighting bout, they bring him a robe, which he's never had before. Boxers like to have robes. They look good in it. It's a piece of costume, you know? You wear it, you feel powerful. And Bobby's like, this is such a big gift. We shouldn't be buying this for him. What's he needed for? That actor should know how important a costume is for a performance.
That's a very good point.
It's poor writing, and it demeans the Bobby Wheeler character, and it bombs.
I understand where you're coming from, but I also think the thing about Bobby, especially in this first season or two, is that yes, he's Tony's best friend, but he's also capable of insensitivity and just being kind of a jerk. I think that's very on brand for Bobby. I get what you're saying. He's an actor, and a costume should help you act the part, in this case, the part of a boxer.
He seemed to be more complaining not about the fact that he had to pony up any dough and the fact that why does he need this anyway? Like, if it had been explicit, like, I can't believe we all had to chip in for this nonsense, then that would be one thing. But he's like, it seemed like he didn't understand the gesture at all. And that, to me, is the demeaning part of that characterization. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the writers are writing him spot on, these characters they created and are shepherding here. Maybe they might know a little bit more about him than I do.
I just think as much as he is Tony's friend, he's a jerk. He's got a big ego. So I wasn't really fazed by him kind of saying, oh, why do we want to do this? It's not a big deal. He's just sparring. That to me felt authentic to the character. But I also see your point, because an actor knows about costuming and should appreciate that. And the bottom line is he should be happier. Maybe he should be happier for his friend. I don't know. Maybe that's part of it.
Yeah, Bobby Wheeler, you dick.
Someone else who's not really featured in this episode, but he makes an impact, Danny DeVito. Louie, again, not a lot to do, but I think, well, at one point he browbeats Alex into betting on the fight, even though it's clear that Alex has no faith that Tony's actually going to win the fight. But what I liked about this is at one point, I think Alex tells him like, oh, all of the other cabbies are going to be at this fight on a Friday night. So, the garage is going to be empty. And Louie says, what are you talking about? This is their biggest earning night of the week. This garage is going to be full of cabbies. And then there's a jump cut to an empty garage. Louie's there in his cage. And I think he calls for a few people and there's no answer. And he kind of gets this look on his face. So he hops out of the cage. He pulls that cool microphone or whatever that he has in the cage. And he proceeds to sing a Cole Porter song. It's From This Moment On. And again, it's really got nothing to do with anything in the episode, but I don't know. It's funny. It's this little bit of...
Yeah, you started talking about this. You said Louie isn't really given much to do in this episode. Louie is the river, which all tributaries flow in this episode, including this scene. Like, to me, this is the climax of the episode where Louie gets a break from all these other idiots and gets to enjoy himself by singing a song and pretending he's a rock star for like 20 minutes. I don't care about Tony and his never getting out of the garage. I want to stay in the garage with Louie.
I love that they give Louie these little things. We've talked about this a little bit already, but Louie is despicable. We mentioned this in the first episode discussion. He really is not a nice person. Through the course of the series, we see him doing a lot of bad stuff, but there's always like the way, and it's just, this is Danny DeVito. Like, it's not necessarily the way the character is written, but it's how it's played. And DeVito has this rare ability to let you see the human underneath the monster, the sort of like charm underneath the beast that's capable of all of these awful things that he does. And this is just a good example of that. Like I said, it's just for a minute, he's relieved of the burden of having to deal with all of these, in his estimation, these cockroaches that he calls cabbies. And what does he do at that time? He takes his microphone and he sings a show tune or whatever. And I think it's great.
Great. Yeah. Once again, this is a very smart move in shuffling the order of the episodes here, giving us this right after the pilot instead of Angela right after the pilot. This is a pretty joyous episode for all its downer and dourness, but then the whole series is downer and dour ultimately. So these little moments of triumph are well won.
Absolutely. So, okay. So I think we've is there anything else you wanted to bring up about the episode or discuss before we talk about how we're going to rate the episode, Father Malone?
Yes. It was a phantom punch. I wanted to say that. The punch in the ring looked fake. Obviously, the punch to Danza's face is real.
Yes,
and he goes down like a stack of potatoes. It's great.
I'm glad you brought that up because that's one of those little. It's a surprise little moment that was unintended.
This actually refers to, once again, to how good Mr. Arbus is as an actor, because here's what's supposed to happen. The champ is supposed to mime punch Danza. Danza's supposed to go down, and then they walk off, and he continues the scene, and he continues as the manager talking to the characters. Instead, the champ actually clocks Danza. Danza goes down, and then turns, and then Arbus just doesn't break character, continues, takes the champ who's giggling. You can kind of tell he's turned his back quickly to the camera, and as he's ushering him out, like, finishes the scene. That's a pro, man.
I would say it's a credit to both Allan Arbus and to Tony Danza that they continued, because he got hit in the. I'm not sure what I would have done had I been in the same situation. Got hit in the jaw, and I've got to continue with this scene.
I mean, to be fair, you probably would have done what Danza did. You would have lain on the floor in pain.
Sure, I mean, but for me, this enters the sort of unintentional pantheon, along with, like, for example, Buck Henry in Saturday Night Live getting sliced in the forehead by the samurai delicatessen. And I mean, there wasn't much left to the sketch, but he got sliced in the head with a sword by John Belushi, and he continues. And actually, I love that you later in the episode, you see he has a bandage very clearly placed on his forehead. I'm glad, like I said, I'm glad you brought that up. So what else? What else? I know you have a lot of notes there. What else did you want to discuss that I
don't have many other notes. It's just that all of Louie's advice is rock solid throughout the entire episode. And to me, he's just the hero. So, that's all. I don't have anything else to bring to this particular episode other than this is a solid entry, and all the comedy is real good.
It is. So let's try to break it down here. We're going to get to the rating, but let's talk about just as an overall impression of the piece, like the good and the bad. As far as the good, we already talked this through, but I think the writing and the acting are great. It shows a lot of faith that they're focusing on the most inexperienced actor of the bunch, and Tony does a great job. His timing is very, very good. And there are some funny bits. We haven't really delved into it, but Latka and Louie, this sort of arguing back and forth about what Latka kind of being lazy on the job or what have you. It's very, very funny. And it only gets better from there. Like I said, as Kaufman gets more and more into the character of Latka, you have more opportunities for him to play up. And it seems to be like it's very typical for Latka to be playing off of Louie, very much Louie being the antagonist for Latka. So we're kind of already seeing that happen, even at this early stage.
Right, but I'd like to point out something about that scene or that sort of plot throughout this. It occurred to me for the first time, Latka has always come off as sort of sweet and a bit clueless. And this performance in this particular episode made me wonder, is he an agent of provocation? Like, he seemed to maybe be doing these things just to mess with Louie just a little bit,
It could very well be. We'll see. There's a little more of that in this next episode. We'll talk about next podcast. But I think these early goings, I think there's a little more of an impishness to Latka that maybe they leaned more on the sweet.
They're gonna sand that off.
They do. I think the any sharp edges are eventually sanded off, and that's fine. But because we know Andy Kaufman, wasn't the sweetest person in real life. He was a provocateur, and I think there's an element of that in these early performances that we maybe don't see as much in the later seasons. So that's a good call up. We talked about Louie is fantastic. I love that they give him that little singing bit, even if it isn't the most original piece. It's still amusing and it's still funny. What else would you call out, if anything else, that you want to spotlight as being good in this episode, Father Malone?
I like the robe gag that he puts on the robe and then they put on the gloves, and then nobody thought to get him an actual boxing robe so that he can't get the gloves off. Like, that's a good bit.
It is. That sort of bit is funny because he puts on the robe and he starts asking them, like, I can't get and then his opponent, Navarone, keeps coming over to him and he's like, not yet. And, he keeps struggling with it and he comes back, not yet. And I think ultimately it's Allan Arbus' character has to come over and go, all right, I can handle this. And he rips it and it's just completely humiliating. I think he even says that. It's humiliating to Tony.
And let me say, if they're going to do an episode where they're going to spotlight Tony, this was, again, the smartest thing they could have done, because Tony Danza was, and at the time, I guess, still was a boxer. And so anytime you get to see him in action doing what he has been training his whole life to do, it's a thing of beauty. So it makes us like that character all the more. All the stuff with Tony is really good in this episode in particular.
Absolutely. I think it's great. I wouldn't say that this is your quintessential Taxi episode. I think we'll talk a little bit about that in the next review, but I think it's funny. I think there is the theme of the cabbies trying to get out of the garage. I think this is kind of the introduction to that plot through line. I mean, we'll see that time and time and time again, but this is the first time.
Are we talking things we didn't like about the episode? Because I didn't like about the episode. I hate that thread through the entire first season. I get where they're coming from, and I know it's part of the derivation of the whole series, but the sort of aspirational, can't wait to get out of this life, it always bothered me the first season.
Okay, so let's have it out. So we'll talk about the bad now. You actually don't like the fact that we're getting the archetype of the cabbie who wants to get out and is sort of like,
I don't mind them doing it. I just don't want to hear them saying it. That's lazy to me. That, like, oh, one day I'll get out of this garage. I'm like, hey, you did it. You're going to get out of being a cabbie. Like they say it a bunch of times where it's like, we should just know that these characters want a better life. And like, I don't know. It just seems silly to me.
I think you're right. And I think I do think they get better and better at writing for that type of plot, but you can't get away from it because the whole, this, as much as it's fun for us as audience members to spend time with cabbies in the garage, we should never really forget that for them, being in the garage is not fun. They have dreams and aspirations that the garage doesn't figure into.
Yeah, but here's the thing. The dream isn't, I can't wait to get out of this cab company. The dream is, I'm a boxer and I want a shot at the champ. Like, it isn't a punishment that he has to go back to being a cabbie. It's that he didn't achieve his ultimate goal. I don't know. They make it too much about trying to escape the pit of being a cabbie when it's where they're also inviting the audience to hang out with these people forever.
Well, but that's exactly my point is, and maybe this is a bit of a catch-22, because the writers want you to feel good spending time with these characters and appreciating their various, schemes and activities in and outside of the garage. But at the same time, they don't go far enough into making the garage and by extension Louie as an unpalatable situation for them to keep getting falling into. There's a lot of describing about what they hate about the garage, but there's not a lot of showing. But do I really want to, as an audience member, to see that kind of depressing boot to the face of get back down here with the rest of the grunts? I don't want to see that. So I'm not sure how you get the best of both worlds there.
You don't. You move on to the second season when it becomes a show about cabbies doing cabbie stuff, and not necessarily like the who is attempting to get out of the ghetto one more time, like which which I'm not saying like the entirety of the first season is that. The next episode isn't like that at all, but it is the theme running through this season. The darkest of all was Gilligan's Island because they wanted off that island. And every episode they tried, and every episode they failed. It's like a Sartre written sitcom.
No exit by the lagoon. It was. I would also say, so we're talking about the bad here. We've talked about the fact that none of the other cabbies really don't have much to do here. And I guess that's fine because this is really Tony's story. But I have to mention the fact that, Bobby, Elaine, and John, and to a degree, Alex really have nothing to do here. But as we've already talked about, John is already looking like the proverbial, fifth wheel here. I mean, he's
27th wheel. Get him off this cab. Get him off this show immediately.
He's not long for this show, and it's okay. I mean, I'm sure Randall Carver is a perfectly nice person in real life.
Sinkhole of charisma.
Trying to be charitable.
We were charitable in the pilot. I'm no longer going to be charitable. It's now an affront that we have to watch Randall Carver take time away from these beloved characters. If we're not going to have Reverend Jim in the first season, then the least they can do is there a fan edit where the non Randall Carver version of Taxi? I encourage somebody to make that and then distribute it. And I'd like to also recommend people watch that instead of this first season.
Randall Carver's the Jar Jar Binks of Taxi. That's terrible. That is awful.
Golly gee, everybody. We're going to go into our cabs.
All right. Well, so other things that I would put forward as not being that great or the bad, that we've talked about the B plots that go nowhere. There's no follow-up to the threat of John losing his job. And even though there's some fun banter back and forth between Louie and Latka that we've discussed, nothing really comes out of that. So I would say there's a bit of aimlessness to some of the plot points, but at the end of the day, I didn't really mind because the rest of the episode is pretty solid. Would you agree?
Oh, yeah. I enjoyed it.
We're going to give this show a final score. Again, to remind you, we're going to score it on the number of yellow lights.
What does a yellow light mean?
Thank you, Mr. Jim Ignatowski. So this is a scale from 1 yellow light to 5 yellow lights, where 1 is the worst and 5 is the best. What would you give this particular episode? What would you give One Punch Banta, Father Malone?
I give it 3 yellow lights.
3 yellow lights. And what's your final and what's your final wrap up of why you'd give it 3?
I think it's head and shoulders above most sitcoms as far as writing and delivery and acting, but I don't think it attains in any way the dizzying heights that this show can achieve. So it's just middle of the road for Taxi. It's still better than most sitcoms, but middle of the road for Taxi.
Okay. Personally, I would give this show 2 yellow lights. And because although I think Tony Danza acquits himself very well in this episode, as does Hirsch and DeVito, this particular episode for me is missing that ineffable melancholy quality that I think would mark a lot of the later classic episodes. And with all the various plot threads and B plots that really go nowhere, coupled with the fact that most of the other actors have nothing to do, I think this cab is stalled leaving the garage. 2 yellow lights.
Wow, you can't. That was like a sneak attack there. I thought you were enjoying this episode. No, I guess you left some breadcrumbs that you did not like. What was transpiring on screen? I didn't think it was that bad. Suddenly, I feel like I'm the apologist for this episode. I thought it was okay.
No. So I'm not judging this against other sitcoms, because if I was going to do that, I would give this probably 4 yellow lights, because even the worst Taxi episodes are still better than your average mediocre sitcom. That goes without saying. But if I'm going to judge this against other seasons and other episodes of Taxi, I have to say that this is, average, slightly below average.
I'm dying to know what gets a 1 yellow light from you, sir.
Oh, it's coming. It's coming.
I know we've got a lot of episodes to get through, but I'm curious.
As a preview for the next episode, we'll be talking about Taxi episode 3, Blind Date. This one is a very special episode because this is the Genesis sneak preview of the theme song to Taxi. And we'll talk more about that. So melancholy. So we will talk about that in the next episode. But thank you very much for tuning into this podcast. Once again, I am HP.
And this has been Father Malone.
And thank you very much. We'll talk to you again next time.
Night, Mr. Walters.
Hello and welcome to Tumbleweeds and TV Cowboys. My name is Hunter. In this podcast, I'll be joined by a different guest each week to discuss a classic Western movie or TV show. I've been a fan of classic Westerns for as long as I can remember, and in recent years, they've become very nostalgic for me. I love the aesthetic, the tropes, and I love seeing different filmmakers' takes on them. At their best, they're incredibly entertaining, rewatchable, and some of my all-time favorite movies are Westerns. We'll mostly focus on Western movies made in Hollywood, but we'll also be covering spaghetti Westerns, and one thing I'm very excited to get into are Western TV shows. I've got some amazing guests coming on the show, film professors, historians, and podcasters. And Tumbleweeds and TV Cowboys is part of the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network, and many guests on the show will be from other shows on the network. Thanks for listening.